Hey everyone, and welcome to Method's Guide to the Wyrmheart for Fellowship's Early Access release. My name is Tactyks, and in this video I'll give you the rundown on the most important mob abilities, my recommended pug-friendly route, as well as tips and tricks for the final boss, Apostate Veras. Note that all this information is based on the open beta, and it is possible that some things have changed, so just keep that in mind. Also, if you're interested in guides for the other dungeons or even heroes, make sure you check out the other videos we have over on the Method YouTube channel. With all that said, let's hop straight into the trash mobs, where shortly into the dungeon you'll reach a fork in the road with the option of going left towards some humanoid mobs or right towards some elementals. In my opinion, the humanoid mobs are easier, so I'm going to recommend you head left. In terms of what those mobs are, first up is the Tundra Stalker and their rapid fire ability, which channels a frontal cone towards the tank. You want to make sure that tanks point this away from your group and then personally step out of the effect. Plus, if you need, you can also use a CC on these mobs to stop that channel entirely. The main caster on this side of the dungeon is the Deceitful Scholar, and their important to interrupt is the Channel Rune of Detonation, which deals heavy group damage while it's channeling, so you want to make sure you use an interrupt or CC to stop this cast ASAP. Outside of that, these mobs just spam Arcane Strike on the tank, so you can use spare interrupts to reduce your tank's damage, but more importantly, once you get above Contender 7 and the Veras Legacy affix becomes active, you'll have to deal with another ability called Volatile Orb. This occasionally creates an orb near the furthest player, which fixates them until it either reaches them or the Scholar dies. While it is fixating them, it is pulsing for damage to nearby players, and if it reaches the target, then it deals a massive hit of group damage to all players no matter where they are, so you really want to make sure whoever is targeted by this kites it away from the rest of your group in order to minimize damage from both effects, and it is possible to choose who this goes on since it always targets the furthest player. Next up are the Blades of Cithro, and their main ability is Slicing Blades, which causes them to spin in a whirlwind effect and fixate the tank for the duration of that channel. So melee players want to make sure they are always standing behind these mobs, and if needed, you can use a CC to end this whirlwind attack immediately. Outside of that, these mobs will enrage at 30% health, so tanks beware, and they also gain a new ability when Veras Legacy is active in Icebreaker. This causes them to leap at a random player and deal damage in an AoE around them, which notably is actually avoidable if you time a dash or a blink for while the mob is in the air, allowing you to avoid the hit entirely. Last up on this side of the adventure are Cold Heart Assassins, who will occasionally jump to a random player and stun them as they channel Wicked Strikes, so be ready with a CC or interrupt to stop this cast. These mobs also gain a magic debuff in Cold Heart Poison once Veras Legacy is active, which both deals dot damage and reduces healing received by 30%, so healers want to make sure they dispel this whenever they see it, especially if it's on the tank. Now, if you do opt to go right and fight the elemental mobs, let me give you the quick rundown on what those do. The most plentiful ones by far are the Ice Shardlings, and these guys simply apply a stacking magic slow and dot on death called Shardling Explosion, so you want to make sure you don't kill too many of these at once, or you can choose to kill all of them at the same time and use a Master Spell Relic to get rid of that damage effect entirely. To add even more Shardlings, you've got the Spellbound Golems, which will spawn ice spikes under all players that you want to avoid, plus on death they will shatter, creating 3 more Ice Shardlings for you to deal with. Joining these mobs are Glacial Sprites, and these guys just spawn freezing pool puddles under random players, so make sure you step out of these if you're targeted. We've saved the scariest mob for last though, as the most dangerous thing by far in this entire adventure are the Greater Ice Elementals, who have 3 different abilities to deal with. First, they have Frozen Stomp, which just does a hit of group damage to players nearby. Notably, ranged characters are able to stand at max range and actually avoid this hit, which is very nice. Next up is Burrowed Strike, where the mob will disappear under the ice and mark a player with a soak, which your entire party want to make sure they hop into in order to split that otherwise lethal damage. If that wasn't enough, you also need to watch out for the random target frontal and avalanche and make sure you're avoiding it. Regardless of which path you took, they'll eventually meet together, and you'll face a combination of all those previously mentioned mobs in the last stretch of the adventure. However, you also face a single new mob in the Eldrin Chronomancers, who have a few important abilities. First, for tanks, there's the Decrepify channel, so you want to make sure you have spare interrupts or a CC ready for this, just so your tank doesn't get overwhelmed. Next up is the Erosion of Time dot, which the mob debuffs 2 players at a time with, and so healers want to make sure they dispel one of these quickly and then keep an eye on the other player who didn't get dispelled, as they'll be taking extra damage. This is also potentially a good time to use that mass dispel relic we talked about earlier if you're equipped with one, especially if some of those previously mentioned poison dots are also out at the same time. Finally, when Veras Legacy is active, these mobs gain the Temporal Manipulation channel, buffing all nearby enemies with 20% increased haste, so once again, you want to make sure you have an interrupt or CC ready to stop this cast. Moving on to my recommended route, as I mentioned earlier, I prefer going down the left path at the beginning of the instance towards the humanoid mobs, where you'll just fight everything in your way until the paths converge again near the first campfire checkpoint. After that, it's basically just a straight shot to the end of the dungeon, avoiding any of the elemental mobs that appear in alcoves off the main path. From there, let's move on to talk about the boss encounter Apostate Veras, where to start, you'll want to make sure you have an interrupt rotation on him, as he has a couple important casts. First up is Icy Death, which just deals a large hit of damage to the tank. Ideally, this doesn't go off, but the hit is livable, and it's a lower priority than the other interruptible ability, Frigid Mists. This is a channel that spawns permanent icy puddles randomly around the room the longer the cast continues, so you want to make sure that whoever is assigned to interrupt this cast does it ASAP, with the goal of it only creating a single puddle per cast, which will make dealing with all of the other abilities significantly easier. In terms of what those are, for tanks there's Howling Blast, which is a large frontal ability aimed at you that fires off after a short delay. You want to watch the timer on this one and make sure you're always facing either into a wall or just generally away from your group, and then make sure you step out of the effect yourself. For everyone to deal with, there's the Glacial Spikes ability, which spawns a circle underneath every player 6 times over the 3-second channel, with each circle detonating after a short delay. This means that you'll need to stutter step as these circles spawn in order to avoid getting hit, while also making sure that you avoid any of those previously mentioned Frigid Mist puddles that have spawned so far. This can be especially annoying to deal with if you have multiple players in melee, so if that's the case, I recommend having all of your melee players stack up just before this cast goes out, and then stutter step together around the boss in order to maintain uptime. When Veras Legacy is active, the boss also gains a new ability in Splintering Ice. This is a magic debuff that goes out on a random player, and when dispelled, it shoots out icicles according to the formation that appears underneath the target. This dot ticks very hard as well, so you do want to dispel it as quickly as possible. However, you don't want to dispel it so quick that people are getting cleaved by those icicles. My recommendation is to have the targeted player stand still, give everyone else in your group a couple seconds just to reposition such that an icicle isn't pointed directly at them, and then you can safely dispel it. But there we have it, guys. Method's guide to the Wyrmheart dungeon. Hopefully this was useful, and if it was, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more fellowship guides, including videos covering the remaining dungeons as well as hero guides. My name is Tactyks, signing off until next time. Good luck out there, fellows.